In a moment, we'll start collecting clues as to the whys, the whats, and the wheres.
And I warn you, what you are about to hear is very disturbing indeed.
Can you hear that? We will not end the nightmare, we'll only exploit it.
Disclosure is upon us, or so we're told. The Trump administration has taken a moment from dismantling the government to greenlight a new congressional task force assigned to uncover all the secrets behind the JFK assassination, Epstein clients lists, and UFOs. Is it too good to be true? We'll find out. Speaking of unbelievable stories, we're finally getting answers about last year's drone flap over New Jersey. Turns out it was all just a big misunderstanding. Oh, really, you say? Yeah, it seems hard to believe, and we'll connect some dots in our second half. Finally, if all this UFO talk has you wondering how you can make a buck on all these extraterrestrial whatchamawhats, I've got good news for you. A new ETF is getting ready to profit from the alien trade. We'll tell you all about it in our Off Normal segment at the end of the show. With that, I'm your host, Fiasco Jones. Welcome to Odd Normal's What in the Weird, the only show that's actually just a realization of your deepest nightmares. I'm joined by my co-host Cold Coffee, who's recently returned from Seattle covering the Punch Punch Kick Kick show, and boy is he super excited to talk all things UFO. Want to hear something strange?
I did something different here.
In early 2025, President Donald Trump announced plans to declassify decades-old government files on UFOs, a move that has sparked significant debate and anticipation. Additionally, Representative Anna Paulina Luna is set to lead a new task force aimed at increasing transparency by declassifying documents of public interest. Building upon the Trump administration's efforts, this task force seeks to address public distrust in government institutions by revealing important information to the American people. And here's Miss Luna explaining the task force.
It is with profound honor that I have been entrusted by Speaker Mike Johnson and Chairman James Comer to lead the House Oversight Task Force on Declassification of Federal Secrets. Together with the help of the White House, our intelligence allies, the Department of Defense, the Department of Justice, we will be conducting investigations into the following: the assassinations of JFK, RFK, and Dr. Martin Luther King, unidentified aerial phenomena, also known as UAPs, unidentified submerged objects, also known as USOs, the Epstein client list, the origins of COVID-19, and the 9/11 files.
How excited are you about this task force? Do you think they're going to get down to it?
It is literally smoke and mirrors. Smoke and mirrors. Look at this, guys. All this stuff that nobody's been telling you. We're going to tell you that all the important stuff that you want to hear, but don't pay attention to what we're doing over here. But look, guys, UFOs, they exist. Perhaps that's what's going to be revealed.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, granted, when you say all that, it's literally like they pick these big topic names that they're like, if we throw this out, these are going to answer questions that have been sitting there for 50, 60 years, and people are just going to rejoice and say, oh my goodness, you finally have given us the truth that we've been waiting for. All the while, this is what he dismantles the FBI for. This is what he dismantles the CIA for. This is why he installs all these people. This is what you want to do. I will say on one hand, I'm like, cool. It would be cool to hear what you have to say. I also feel like there's probably not going to be anything earth-shattering that we're going to find out. I think every president that's either found out what is going on has chosen not to for some particular reason. And I'm not looking forward to any major like, oh my goodness, thank you, President Trump, for finally coming out with that often vague comment about whatever, all these research or whatever. To me, it's smoke and mirrors. If that's what their big thing, if this is what they're focused on, this is what they feel like we need to be investigating and looking at, is stuff like this that's been existing for whatever.
Right.
I mean, maybe this is how they got Kennedy to want to be the food guy or something.
Oh.
He's like, I'll be your food czar if you figure out what happened to the Kennedy bros. You know,
I think you're actually. I think I heard something to that effect early on.
I think I heard that. I thought I heard that as well. I thought, as much as we probably thought that was a joke,
Right.
There's probably some seriousness to it too. I mean, I could see it from his side, Kennedy's side, where he's like, "Yes, I want to know this. Our family wants to know the truth. We want to know what you guys know." Outside of him, nobody else really cares. I'm like, this is like whatever. But to me, we had a comment. We were talking earlier, and I won't get Fiasco started on it all again. We had a long discussion before we started recording of a lot of the serious shady stuff that's really happening in government, but we didn't want to, I don't want to bog this one down, but to think that this is what their focus is, to me, it just seems smoke and mirrors. And as much as I think it'd be cool if they actually had some real stuff from the UFO stuff, I don't think we're going to be lucky enough to hear some earth-shattering display like they've been sitting on some years and years of info. But I don't know. I will be shocked if there is some truth. But to think that this is what their focus is going to be, it's smoke and mirrors. Baby.
Well, in just the last episode, we talked about how the FBI has a real X-Files department or a unit. And that Doge will most likely dismantle it. And then you say, okay, and now we have this task force on top of that. It's like, well, let's just keep we don't know for certain if if it will get crushed, but there's a chance that it probably will. Who knows? But it also it's like okay, we're kind of trying to make you feel better. Like, oh yeah, the FBI is out of it, but we're on the case. That doesn't give me a ton of hope, because these are the same cats that were in charge of the UAP hearings, and they really didn't get anything done. In fact, during that whole time, they complained that the government wasn't allowing them to move forward. They were kept a simple like a corporal would say, no, you can't come in here. You need to have certain clearances. And well, we're Congress people. We should have no. Sorry, you can't. And they were like, all right, and they just kind of shrug. Even David Grush, when he came out, he said, I would love to tell you more about this in a skiff, one of these little compartmentalizes, you can't, it's all, all sealed off and super, classified hearing type thing. And the powers that be in the intelligence agency are like, no, you can't have a skiff. And that's it. That was the end of the story. And so you're telling me these same people, and it's the same commission or they're gonna get down to the nitty gritty. And another one, the Epstein files. I don't think Trump ever wants to get to the bottom of the Epstein files or the client list. So I'm calling
not until they've scrubbed it. Yeah, not until they've scrubbed it clean,
right.
And then not until he has every judge powerless in this country to do anything against them.
Looks like we're on the same page here.
Yeah, I think it's a bunch of shit. As much as it would sound cool, I think if you would have said this, anybody in all the years, people would say that's really interesting. That'd be cool. But to hear it now, it just reeks of look at this and don't pay attention to the other stuff that's going on. Like if you're going to dismantle and get rid of real investigators that are doing real shit, and this is what your focus is, who is going to be doing it? And like you already started saying, like the people that did the other ones were not good. You're just going to she's going to get together her mom group and they're going to be like, yo, we're all going to investigate this shit. Let's do this.
Yeah. All right. I don't have much hope, but we'll see, I guess. We'll have to wait and see. Like always, again, wait and see. All right, moving on. In September 2024, a U.S. Air Force pilot identified as Troy 21 reported a close encounter with an unidentified flying object during a Homeland Security mission over California. The incident, captured in leaked audio, details an encounter with a dark gray cylindrical object approximately the size of a football, passing just 10 feet beneath the aircraft at an altitude of 20,000 feet. Despite clear weather conditions, the object's origin and nature remain unexplained. This event adds to a series of similar encounters reported by military personnel, highlighting ongoing concerns about unidentified aerial phenomena in controlled airspace. And let's take a look at the actual, this is the the audio that was released.
LA Center, Troy 2-1.
Troy 2-1, go ahead.
It's not weird, but I just had something pass underneath my wing, maybe like a football-sized object right underneath our wing.
Troy 2-1, Roger. Do you think it was a drone or?
I have no idea. I got my sensor operator looking for it on the camera right now. We'll see if we can find it. But it's like a dark gray cylindrical object, and it was probably the size of a football, and it passed maybe 10 feet under our right wing.
Troy 2-1, Roger. Thank you for the report. Keep me advised if you find anything else out.
Yeah, we'll do. We're looking for it now. And okay, correction. LA Center, Troy 2-1. We got something on air-to-air radar. We're trying to get visual on it.
Troy 2-1, Roger.
And LA Center 094 bearing from us for about 60 miles is where it is now.
Troy 2-1, say again.
094 bearing from us about 60 miles away is where we're picking it up now.
LA 15,
Troy 2-1, Roger. Thank you.
All right. This guy was stopped at 14 for him because we were busy. There was some UFO reported here, but that's all taken care of now, so you don't have to worry about it unless you want to talk to Aaron. That was earlier, but it's gone.
I guess further reporting showed that because originally it was sighted next to the military aircraft and then 60 miles down the road, that someone calculated it had to have been going at least like Mach 2, which if most people were thinking this is probably a drone, you're someone just screwing around, flying a drone illegally, nearly destroying a jet. But the fact that it had zipped around and went 60 miles away in just a minute. That's the other thing too. The second time they sighted it on the radar, it was 60 miles away in a minute. And they were like, okay, that has to be some kind of like it's clearly not a drone because drones right now do not fly that fast. So yeah, that mystery's up there. The one good thing I think is interesting is that it does seem like from this reporting that the bias for reporting these things appears to be diminishing, and we're hearing about them more and more often, which to me is a good thing. So what do you think about this? Do you think it was a drone, or what are your hypotheses that whether this possible thing could be?
I mean, drones certainly make sense. I mean, unless, Superman's out there throwing footballs, and then he just happened to catch it. I mean, if he said Mach 2, I just had to quickly look up. Mach 2 is 1,534 miles per hour. So if he sees this thing quick enough to go underneath his wing, it's probably, I just wonder, and he said it was 10 feet. If it's going that fast, I wonder how good of a vision that he was able to see it, if it really was that close and if it wasn't something that was further away and it just happened to... the way that he glimpsed it so quickly that he gave it that particular size,
or even the shape, like the cylindrical, at that speed, maybe things distort. I don't know.
That could be it as well. It was distorting as well. It just, I wonder if there was something just played into his eyes and maybe the size was bigger. But I mean, something up that high, you would think it has to be either a drone or something new, experimental, craft that somebody's messing with, some spy sort of stuff or whatever. But it's crazy.
Or it could be a legit fucking, it could be a continuation of the phenomenon that we've been talking about since 2017, that there is stuff out there, and finally these pilots are breaking their silence and they're like, okay, well, I'm going to report it. And I think that bias toward not reporting was built into the system to shame people for speaking out, saying, okay, well, that'll because you're a lunatic or whatever. And now that's disappearing. And so guess what? We're actually hearing the news regularly. And, people like News Nation, who, for whatever reason, this is their bread and butter now. Hats off to you guys. They will report almost any UFO thing anymore. They're kind of like Channel 8 here in Las Vegas with George Knapp. And that's good because that's, you have to give a platform to these things and not completely ridicule them. And I'm not even saying these are aliens. I'm actually not a big nuts and bolts guy that thinks that, people from Alpha Centauri are coming here to communicate with us.
They're not?
I mean, are they? I don't know. Probably not.
I don't know.
But I mean, I that doesn't absolve me from saying from anything, because I think it's probably weirder than that. I think it's probably a weirder phenomenon. Or honestly, or it could be something weirdly mundane. It's a natural phenomenon that we just don't understand. Maybe it involves, 37 dimensions interacting with each other, and when they strike, kind of like interdimensional lightning, when these two things collide or have there's some kind of friction, it creates these weird phenomenon that to our eyes, our 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional eyes, we're like, what the heck is that thing? Why is it moving so fast? In fact, it's not moving at all. Something weird like that. Or it could be, again, it could be the equivalent of a pigeon flying from the 37th dimension through our dimension into the 27th. And from us,
it would have to be up that high.
Yes. And to our eyes, it looks like a metallic cylinder moving at Mach 2.
But again, like you said, who knows? But I agree with you. I think it's good that now people can start talking about these things, and it means they're looking for these things. People are paying attention. I think at one point, maybe they were just focused and they were like, don't even look because we can't say anything about it. But now, the people that they're able to report these to are younger. They're more open to the ideas, So I think if anything else, maybe we're seeing a change in the culture to where now we're going to start hearing more because people aren't immediately being, like you said, labeled like a nutso or something, like it's a bit more of a safe space to bring these things up. And, I think now more than ever, people are looking upwards. And if they see something, people are going to see something eventually. So I think people are talking because now you're having corroboration. Like even in this case, like people were able to sort of say, oh yeah, we saw something going on, so it's interesting.
It is. And we'll probably, obviously we're going to hear more about it. And in fact, our next story, there is more about it. In a recent interview with former Congressman Matt Gaetz, Tennessee Representative Tim Burchett shared intriguing insights into unidentified underwater phenomenon, or USOs. Burchett recounted a briefing where an admiral described a massive football field-sized object moving at extraordinary speeds beneath the ocean's surface.
But a lot of the sightings we're having are around what are deep water areas where we literally know more about the surface of the moon than we do these areas. I think these beings possibly had been here for quite some time, and I think we're just sort of a stopover, and they're using possibly our water. I talked to an admiral, went out that door right behind me. I can remember him as he was leaving, and we were talking about it, and he's a little cagey, and then he leaned over and whispered to me, he said, Tim, they're real. They are real. But when they tell me something's moving at hundreds of miles an hour underwater, and our capabilities are, I don't think we have anything to do 40 miles an hour, and these things, this one was large as a football field underwater. And this was a documented case. And I have an admiral telling me this stuff. And it just, to me,
So that's where you think the bases are, is underwater then, because of those reports?
I do. I just think traveling light years, I think it happens. I think it's possible.
What I find interesting, though, is how this idea of the UAPs, it seems to have been captured by the Republicans for some reason. Like, you will not get any Democrats to really sink into this at all. There's a handful, but honestly, on the Republican side, they're all in. I mean, Matt Gaetz himself has his own story that he kind of disclosed right before he brought on Burchett, where he was talking to Jeremy Corbell, and his little bit was almost a little more in the kind of far out there way. I'm actually play that one.
We have members of Congress who believe that not only are there extraterrestrials on Earth, but that they have built bases and that they are operating out of bases. I have personally met with people in uniform for the United States military who believe that there are hybrid breeding programs going on right now.
I, too, have met people in uniform that think that crazy shit exists on this world.
Right, exactly.
Should I go on a news show and tell that same thing?
Apparently, yes. But
and like he said that that was so earth-shattering and revealing. He's like, I've talked to somebody that says that they know something.
That is literally,
and then that was it.
That is where we're at right now with the modern UFO disclosure kind of folks. That it always comes down to. I mean, David Grush, his whole thing, he's called a whistleblower just simply because he says people told me they saw this, and I'm telling you. I'm like, well, did you see anything? Absolutely not.
Do we have any proof?
Right.
No, but they saw it.
Yeah, but these.
I'm just telling you what they saw.
And it comes down to like kind of the tyranny of authority, or the fallacy of authority, where just because this guy says that he has like 4 stars on his, lapel, that means all of a sudden he's incorruptible, or he can just be mistaken. It is weird, and but that's essentially like, I know a guy who told me this is the standard for current, except for you have on the other side. You have people like Chris Bledsoe and Jake Barber from episode 1, I believe, who believes that he can actually, commandeer these vehicles and communicate with these aliens. So then it becomes like, okay, now it's their first person testimony, and it's like, okay, what do we think about that?
But there is at least a little something when somebody's willing to take it on the chin and say that they saw something, as opposed to, oh, hey, I heard something, and I'm just going to keep spreading it, Like, believe me, I like hearing about all this crazy, wacky stuff, but I think we all, if all it took was us saying, like, I know a guy that says he's seen shit, and then that's enough to, like, keep the story going. I feel like we've been doing that forever, but there was a point where somebody says, well, that's fine and dandy. Show me the receipts. Like, let me see something, but now it's like, oh, well, like they're doing something earth-shattering because they're doing the exact same thing that we've been doing forever anyways. When people that's just called spreading rumors,
Yeah, I mean, that's without the evidence. And I would say, the rejoinder to that would be that the evidence has been collected. That's what Jake Barber's saying. He worked on a crash retrieval team, and they collected the information.
We saw the video.
Right. We saw that very compelling video. And, so that's why we don't have any evidence. And also it's being stifled. But when it comes down to it, they're essentially offering the same kind of stuff. They're saying, trust me, bro. Like, I wouldn't lie to you. And to me, and I think like to a lot of people, that has credibility if you really know the person, and you can kind of you can make a value judgment based on that, in the sense of like, oh, I know this guy. He doesn't really like clap off about weird stuff all the time. This is really out of character. So it makes you pay attention. It may not make you believe them, but it makes you pay attention. Whereas I don't know David Grush. I don't know Lou Elizondo. And it seems to me that there could very well be a, I don't know if maybe it's a personality type, because I don't think there's any money in it. I don't think that, Lou Elizondo is doing his hardest to make money out of it, but he would have made way more money had he just stayed at the Pentagon.
Yeah.
Assuming he wasn't going to get fired. But leaving.
Oh, he would have been gone. I mean, it is interesting. I think if anything, when you're looking at the people that are willing to say stuff, I think congressmen, senators, people in the high-ranking military, I think in the years past, would have not ever really spoke out without really hard proof, because in their eyes, their reputation's at stake. Mm-hmm. If you're coming out and you kind of associating yourself, now it feels like
President Carter, he came out, and I guess he paid the price because they called him a lunatic, but he said he saw something. Lunatic. Yeah. He says he saw something, and he stuck to it too. That's the other thing too. Yeah. And that's the kind of person I actually tend to think, I kind of believe him. Maybe it was, again, he probably can't explain what it was. He just saw something very, very strange in the sky and felt compelled to tell other people about it. And that's the part that really kind of, I'm willing to go that far and say, yeah, there's a phenomenon happening that's been happening for a very, very long time. And it deserves some kind of investigation, even though I think it becomes incredibly difficult to investigate it using our contemporary scientific method, because you do need a replicable phenomenon, and you need at this point you need some kind of specimen. Despite what they say, we have tons of specimens. it does beggar belief to say, okay, well, they're all hiding, like not a single one of these scientists has like stolen a picture, not even a picture. And I do not give any credibility to the alien autopsy video or any of the other BS, tabloid TV type exposés. That's all you have right now. All you have are these hoaxes, these alien autopsy types things, and you have David Grush, Jake Barber, Lou Elizondo, and the list goes on, telling us, yes, this, and these are the nuts and bolts guys. They're the ones that I don't know. I don't know. They're just it's aliens, or it's these, I guess, non-intelligent creatures. No, it's non-human intelligence. I'm sorry, non-human intelligent creatures. So they're not really 100% saying it's aliens. It's something, but it's still, they're flying spaceships and crashing them into the ground. But moving on to the less nuts and bolts side of things, NASA astronauts harassed by 125-foot winged aliens in space. That's the claim making waves, courtesy of UFO experiencer Chris Bledsoe. According to Bledsoe, these towering otherworldly beings have been peering into space shuttles, terrifying astronauts, and operating in Earth's orbit like they own the place. He suggests they've been here all along, watching, waiting, and occasionally making their presence known in ways that leave even the most hardened space travelers shaken.
When I ask them, why do you need me? Why do you want me here? You've got rockets, you've got space shuttles, you've got satellites, you've got the space station, all the money and technology and telescopes in the world. And they're like, well, we know they like you and they communicate with you, and they don't have nothing to do with us at all. And we'd like to know why, what it is they want, and why it is they're harassing their astronauts.
Harassing them?
Harassing them. So has any astronauts ever seen an orb or one of these? All of them.
No way.
All of them.
Really?
Yep.
I know I've seen videos of Buzz Aldrin talking about they saw some stuff, but he never said specifically.
Well, they've never released it.
Right.
But that's why I was there, consulting with them about what they're now calling a plasmoid, which is an angelic being. It's just little glowing beings that come out of the orbs.
So how do they see them? How do they appear to them?
They would appear outside the space shuttle, look in the windows at them.
Whoa.
Stand up over the shuttle bay or the space station, glowing. Sometimes there's a report of a half a dozen of them, 125 feet tall, with wings, standing there smiling at them.
Yeah, smiling in the window.
Space. Yeah.
Wow.
So for 18 years, I never talked about this, and this is the first time publicly tonight. Really.
He sounds oddly like Matt McConaughey.
I mean, I guess Matt McConaughey is from Texas.
It's just that's the way he delivers. I was like, if you close your eyes, I'm like, and I can hear him talking about, man, just trusting the things they see in space. That would be absolutely frightening to stare out of a window on the space station or, one of these ships that's going to launch up there and see one of these things. That would be absolutely like, sorry, you're gonna have to clean my spacesuit because I done just shit in it.
Right.
That's ridiculous.
Half a dozen, six of these massive, I guess, angels is what he's kind of essentially describing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when he says it like that, it's like, okay, well then that doesn't sound scary at all. Like when you say it's like an angel, I'm like, well, were they scared because they're just so big and overpowering? But when you give it the term angelic looking, you don't really put that typically on something that's frightening or whatever, maybe
the size alone though, I feel like would be terrifying enough, even if they were like had happy faces. I mean, there's that anime Attack on Titan where all the giants have these dumb looking smiles on their face, and it's terrifying
before they eat the people.
Yeah, exactly. So even if they were like just happy smiling, these massive giants, I'd be like, nah, that's not cool. That's not cool at all.
So he said that there was a report. So these NASA reports are filed. It was these astronauts filed reports. Is that what he's sort of saying? Like, so is this something that we can get released information? Like, who is the report?
They're classified. You can't see them.
Yeah, I guess not.
They're always classified.
Not for much longer. Not for much longer. Add that to the list.
Yeah.
It's coming out soon.
Trump's disclosure is coming.
Let's go, Luna. Let's do this.
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing. I feel like it's either yes or no. And she says she has the full backing of Trump. So, we're going to see. It will or will not. But yeah, I don't know what to make of the 125 foot tall aliens, which he says also, like were reported by astronauts years ago. So, I have
125 is so big. I feel like there's so many eyes always focused outwards, staring at the stars. There's like even a little amateurs staring at the stars, always through telescopes. You would think somebody would see these things. And I know people track the space station, track all this other things. I'm just wondering, like, why are we not seeing more? Or maybe they're, like you said, dimensional. Maybe they're only shown on one direction. Maybe the backside is mirrored and it just looks like space. But on the front side, wings and all,
I mean, again, my take on it is it's far weirder than anything we can comprehend, that maybe your visual experience is completely different than anyone else's. Maybe they only appear to you. Maybe it's literally being broadcast into your brain and they're not really there in our sense. I mean,
I like that. That's
the channel.
That's some sci-fi right there.
Yeah. The channel Area 52 had an interview with GSP. I just saw it last week. I don't know when it actually dropped, but he talks about a road trip he was having with Rashad Evans, and they're driving down the road, and according to Rashad, he sees the traffic is just backing up, so they slow down. That's when they catch sight of this thing in the sky, and it hovers for a moment, just gracing the ground, and then boom, like that, it's gone. Well, when GSP talks about it, he's like, I saw that. I feel like I saw the same thing. I experienced the same thing. But when I heard Rashad talking about it on social media, that was not what happened. What I saw. He saw something completely different, or the moments, like the time involved. Because I think Rashad said that it happened. It took like 15 minutes, or whatever. It took a while and then was gone. Whereas GSP said no, it happened in like seconds, the whole thing. And the thought is like, well, maybe again, this phenomenon just messes with perception and time and all those things, and it's far weirder than simply saying, "Oh yeah, it's just space aliens driving their trucks through our sky." It's something bizarre, and so that's, perhaps the same thing is happening with these 125 foot angels. Maybe, it's because it's manifest. They want to see angels. And maybe that's what's happening to Chris Bledsoe, is that he's a very religious person. So they wants to manifest as religious phenomena for his sake.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean,
that's an interesting wrinkle when you put it like that I didn't even think about that. Yeah. If they know that they can alter the perception of the viewer, but knowing that, okay, well, to add an extra wrinkle, everyone's got to be a little bit different so that the stories don't ever match up, so that immediately when they tell the stories, it sounds already like wish-wash, like nothing, even though they literally could have seen something that was literally there. But like you said, the perceptions plays out differently. They could even alter the memories or whatever. But yes, when you tell the story, you're like, it was a red craft that did spirals and then fired, went away. And I said, no, I saw it as a blue craft that did this weird zigzag pattern, and it took 5 minutes. You're like, no, it was clearly like 30 seconends.
And then you have to add, and then most people didn't see anything at all. And so, it may also make, in a way, kind of also makes me think another culprit could just be like, time travelers that know that there's some kind of like a balancing act, that you can't just be invisible to everybody at all times. So instead you have this little threshold, and some people will see you, but not enough to actually change time. I don't know. Again, my mind can go wild with everything. So, but it is interesting. And so as much as I poo-poo on Chris Bledsoe, I can't, again, I keep that in the back of my mind, is that this phenomenon, it could just be that strange that it's designed not to be studied or taken seriously. It's designed in a way for it to exist and to persist, to be confounding and impossible to really get your hands around in the way we need to reason and understand something. So yeah, I don't know.
Is this the book that you were telling me to read?
No, that's Encounters. Chris Bledsoe does show up in that. But
have you read UFO of God?
Yeah. This is a good book by Diane Pasulka. UFO of God. It's not. I would honestly push you to anyone who wants to know Bledsoe's story, just look him up on any of the podcasts. He typically will run straight through his entire encounter and all the major bits and the hits. The book itself is like, like it's just like really expanded. So
if you catch an interview, more than likely you've heard the story already, and you just save yourself from having to get the book.
Yeah, I mean, you're not gonna. You just watch. Yeah, have him tell his story, and you're gonna get all the greatest hits, and that's all you really need to know. Because he's not. Other than if you really want to, I wanted to hear the names that he calls out from different agencies, and I like, because I'm a weirdo, I like to like list them down and like keep track of them and like, who are these guys? Why? Who he's talking to? This guy, because those same names show up in that book, Encounters by Pasulka, and it begins to seem like this is like on the government side, there's some manipulation happening as well that's not exactly talked about. And then you have another layer of the Grushes, who almost seem to be are they participants? Are they dupes? Are they part of the project? Are they, I don't know. But that's to me, that's a very interesting, one of those layers, of this phenomena that I really am interested in. Key players, who's moving what, who's saying what, and where things are going. So yeah, this
is where I feel you pull out your diagram board that you have hidden on the wall with all the dots and connecting things together.
There's nothing wrong with that, because if you want to keep track of things, you need to have this line connects to this line.
That's it.
Yeah, but I'll keep my diagram board to myself until the time is right.
Until it's fully fleshed out.
Exactly. All right. If you're interested in putting your money where your weird is, do I have an investment opportunity for you? Turns out there's a new ETF catering to UFO nuts like ourselves. We'll tell you all about it in our Off Normal segment at the end of the show. Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's denial. The White House has a new explanation for the explosion of drone sightings over New Jersey last year, but we're not buying it. We'll tell you all the who's, what's, and whys after the break.
Hi, I'm world-famous silviculturist Bryant Fontenelle. Did you know that every 30 minutes a Sasquatch is killed in an industrial accident? It's true. These majestic creatures are threatened every day by the encroachment of large-scale, destructive tree harvests. And if you don't act now, there may not be any Sasquatch alive in 5 years. That's why I'm partnering with the Great North American Wood Ape Society to call for a ban on the destructive practice of Freddy Krueger tree slashing. Yes, that's the industry name for a type of tree cutting that involves slicing the tree into a bunch of tiny pieces using a gigantic claw machine, and then stuffing the pieces into mylar bags for commercial sale. I bet you didn't know, but this is how confetti's made. Freddy Krueger tree slashing is indiscriminate and needlessly kills animals that live among the mighty Douglas fir, some of which are the humble, if not magical, endangered Sasquatch. You might know them as Bigfoot or Big Feet or whatever. You know what I'm talking about. The Harry and the Hendersons guy. Does that reference still make any sense? I don't know. It doesn't matter. Bigfoot's feet, they are in danger of going extinct, and it's time we step up to protect their beautiful feet. I'm Bryant Fontenelle, and I saved the Bigfoot today. Will you?
late 2024, New Jersey residents were perplexed by numerous drone sightings over residential areas and sensitive locations, including military installations. The surge in reports led to widespread speculation and concern. In response, the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, imposed temporary flight restrictions over 22 critical infrastructure sites in New Jersey on December 18, 2024, to mitigate potential risks. These restrictions were precautionary measures, as stated by the Department of Homeland Security, with no specific threats identified. Then, on January 28, 2025, White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt addressed the issue, clarifying that the drones were authorized by the FAA for research and recreational purposes. She noted that many operators were hobbyists and private individuals, and emphasized this was not the enemy.
From President Trump directly, an update on the New Jersey drones. After research and study, the drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons. Many of these drones were also hobbyists, recreational, and private individuals that enjoy flying drones. In time, it got worse due to curiosity. This was not the enemy.
So we have this new explanation, just research. This, of course, makes me and probably everyone else wonder, why the lies? Because if you remember, back in that era, Biden was saying, I don't know. I don't know what was going on. Granted, there were some folks on TikTok who had the receipts and called BS.
I've been doing some reading, and I can now tell you that last December, the U.S. Transportation Command, Air Mobility Command, the National Aerospace Research and Technology Park, and the Atlantic County Economic Alliance announced the establishment of a testing corridor between Delaware and New Jersey for a long list of military, commercial, and academic drone technologies. And according to their press release, these drone tests would not only be conducted in and around military installations, but could instead be launched and recovered from anywhere within this drone testing corridor, which they identify as between Joint Base McGuire-Dix-Lakenhurst in New Jersey and Dover Air Force Base in Delaware. And according to that federal press release, this testing corridor is meant for the rapid development of commercial, academic, and federal government drone systems that could benefit future applications for the strategic airlift capabilities of the U.S. Air Force.
So if what he says was true, and there's really at this point no reason to disbelieve him, and all this information was publicly available, what was the purpose of pretending that they didn't know? And they strongly wanted us to believe they had no idea. And also, how much were the Air Force and the Coast Guard involved? Because recall that the Coast Guard did confirm an incident related to these sightings. On December 11th, 2024, at the time, the Coast Guard stated that multiple low-altitude aircraft were observed in the vicinity of one of their vessels near Island Beach State Park in New Jersey. Additionally, U.S. Representative Chris Smith claimed that a 47-foot Coast Guard ship was followed by between 12 and 30 of these drones as they were going through the water. The commander of NORTHCOM said that there were at least 350 drone detections reported at 100 different military installations in 2024. A side note, a military spokesman did say that the military bases have frequent drone incursions throughout the year, but have limited authorities, as they say, in quotes, when it comes to conducting investigations off of military installations in the United States, and is also prohibited from conducting intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance operations in the United States, which might be used to determine the origins of who might be flying the drones. I know in one case they said that They confirmed that some of the drone incursions were simply related to criminals bringing contraband into a nearby prison. But I mean, that was not the majority of them. The spokesman also said that military installations have good relations with law enforcement who can conduct investigations off the installations. And speaking of law enforcement, they're none too happy about how they were treated during the flap. If you recall, they were running all over the place trying to intercept these things with absolutely no luck. They would fly their drones up and they would get close, but then these things would, the mysterious drones would just fly away, as though, I mean, it's just as though they knew that they were being pursued, and it's like, okay, we got to go run away and stay secret. They were fielding angry calls and made to look very ineffectual. The police were. So it's no surprise that they feel a little abused by the whole thing.
The department set up a mobile command post to track the drone activity up and down the Jersey Shore. But now the White House says all that panicking was unnecessary, claiming the FAA authorized the flights for research.
It would have been better if they just told us it was authorized and there wouldn't be any resources spent or any activity.
While he wouldn't put a dollar amount on the response, he says the real cost is credibility. The Monmouth sheriff in agreement.
Certainly they could have quelled it. Somebody from the FAA certainly had to see all the national reporting that was going on and could have made the phone call. They didn't.
They absolutely did not. Now, absolutely. And again, it is perplexing. And now, if you're like me, none of it sounds like we're getting the full story. And even if you're not inclined to conspiracy theories, I think it's safe to bet that the government never tells us 100% of what they know. I always assume we are getting some mix of the truth and some useful fiction that allows the government to protect their secret programs. My doubts would appear to place me in good company, or at least the usual company, because investigative journalist George Knapp weighed in on the situation, expressing skepticism about the official explanations. He questioned the thoroughness of the FAA's oversight and the potential for unauthorized drone activities, suggesting that the true nature and purpose of some drone operations might remain undisclosed.
As the mystery deepened and the drones kept flying, Congress started asking questions, and the FBI launched an investigation.
We just don't know, and that's the concerning part.
According to the White House, the FAA suddenly remembered that it had authorized flights of research drones. How many? Over what area? The FAA website doesn't say. The FAA had also ordered flight restrictions on drones over much of New Jersey, but it didn't fess up. Here's where the mystery gets stickier. In December, drones penetrated the restricted airspace over a New Jersey nuclear plant and over multiple military facilities on the East Coast. Drones caused Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio to shut down for a period. Coincidentally, during the same period when the East Coast was being inundated, formations of mystery objects invaded the highly restricted airspace over 4 essential air bases in the UK. The intrusions continued for weeks and were well coordinated, and according to media reports, the U.S. deployed its best anti-drone technology, but it had no effect on the intruders. And what about the serious intrusions that took place for 17 straight nights at Langley Air Force Base in Virginia, exactly a year earlier? Government officials acknowledged they employed their best anti-drone tech, but were unable to jam or track the intruders.
So I feel like it's safe to say now that all that talk about, we're deploying these anti-drone things is BS, because those were their drones. I mean, which doesn't help explain anything, in my opinion. It only further adds to the mystery of why lie? Why go through so many deceptions for something that, if that TikToker was correct, was already publicly available? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense at all to me. Like, I mean, simply saying, oh yeah, those are ours, and it's from a program, would have settled everything, and no one would have cared. The average Joe would have just been like, oh, okay, it's a part of a NASA program. All right, whatever.
But that's why it sounds like such full of shit. Like the corridor, regardless, however the size, I mean, I'd have to go back and listen to that clip again. Didn't seem like it would spread that whole width and that the sheer size, let alone it was said it was over commercial areas, about a city trying to pick it up. It wasn't saying anything about going over military bases, regardless if that would have been part of the commercial applications. To me, sounds like there was no clear answer, that they weren't quite sure. So like, what's the quickest way to say, oh, let's just say the FFA knew about it, but if the FFA has no records, they can't produce how many flights, or all, they just stay this vague whatever. To me, it sounds like provide an answer so people stop asking questions and then hope that they don't pursue it. Because I think if, just like the police and the sheriffs were saying, you know, it could have been a simple call if you know what's going on, just to say, hey, this is what's going on. And, you know, to have a Coast Guard ship that says it's being followed, You would think the FAA would be like, oh, my bad. That was us. We know what we're doing.
Right.
And it just, to me, it sounds like it's purely just like they're pulling out some answer that we can't fully have proven to us. Like, show us, prove us. If the FAA was doing their things, tell us more than just saying, okay, that was ours. And also some other hobbyists that happen to do it at the same time. You know, I do believe hobbyists joined in on the fun.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yes.
You know, like I get that part 100%. When people start doing, they're like, well, I'm going to take mine up and I'm going to add to the mystery. But the locations of being over bases and things of that sort, that's why I think people were worried about, because they assumed that that's why it was either, you know, one of these potential enemy forces, Russia or China, or somebody looking at our bases, looking at our energy plants, you know, our infrastructure. And then that I can see where fear can become a real thing, because then people are like, are they protected? You know, because again, the military can't really investigate off the base, which is just kind of silly. If somebody incursions onto a base, they should have the authority to track it down.
But they also didn't seem particularly. This is the other thing that the dimension that never really made sense to me, because are they that like limp wristed when it comes to you invading their airspace? I was always led to believe that the minute you cross that line, you essentially give up your rights to live. In fact, if you go up here to Area 51, you will see signs to that effect. That if you cross this line, we will shoot you and kill you. Now,
only within that property, I think, is what the problem is. Their rule of law is within those boundaries.
But that goes all the way up to the sky. That goes all the way up to through the airspace. That's not just like a terrestrial thing. That
I agree. But once the drone leaves that space, it seems to me the worst part is that if they have the tools to track it down, they can't go follow it because their jurisdiction is only within the base.
Right. But then why not shoot it down?
Then
why
they try
not?
to.
Yeah.
That's what I say. I'm like, I get it. They're trying to track it or whatever. I was like, well, just shoot it down and study the parts.
Exactly.
And see
because
what you get from the parts.
I can understand, because even though those signs are posted at Area 51, several people have driven in there and only a handful have been killed. In those cases, those people were maniacs that like wouldn't stop, or they attacked the actual security department folks. Most other people are arrested. They're arrested. They're pulled over and they're arrested because they're human beings. And I'm sure that like, even though it says I have the right to kill you, I probably won't, because whatever, you're just trespassing. But in the case of a drone, it's not a person. It should be like, shoot it, kill it, destroy it. It could have a payload. It could have cameras. It could be doing God knows what. And now we don't have the moral ambiguity of murdering something. We can just do it. And they didn't. They still, held their hands, which I think plays to the idea that they were in on it to some degree, and that they were just pretending, which that in itself never as a policy. Let's say that was the policy. Just, I don't know, just pretend you can't do anything about it. Are they trying to make us look weak and impotent to the rest of the world?
Well, I think that's the part that they don't want to admit is I don't think our bases have the defense structure set up on most bases to shoot down a small drone.
So we are weak and impotent is what you're saying.
I think we are. I think on the bases, I think that's the part that they're afraid to say is that we haven't had that internal threat happen inside the U.S. yet. And I think that's what would cause the catalyst to make it a known thing once it finally happens. I think right now, if you go on most of those bases, something easily can fly on. They can understand after the fact if it's big enough to trigger a response on a radar, which means it has to be either something usually maybe the size of like a flock of birds or something bigger. The radars is going to be, they're looking for vehicles, they're looking for planes, they're looking for whatever. They're not looking for something the size of a bird. And that's why most drones fly
I'm going to call
onto
BS
base
on
without
that
being tracked.
I'm going to call BS on that only because early in the Biden administration, we had the Chinese balloon. And everyone was.
But that was way up there.
Still,
people were.
It was revealed during that because then there was also another incursion in Alaska, and the in that case the actual jets.
Well, that balloon was huge as well.
Right.
It wasn't like something small. That balloon was big.
But during that whole thing, it was revealed, NORAD came out and said, oh, yeah, this happens all the time. Things float in through wherever, are flying over. The tiny little things are flying all over. But we actually set our dial, essentially, to filter those out. We only want to see large objects. And then, but it was after that when they got called out, because they're like, what? You're telling me like there's stuff just floating around and people got outraged. They're like, okay, fine. We will increase and now we can see the small stuff. So
I still think NORAD is on the boundaries. I don't think NORAD's monitoring this. They're monitoring, I would think, something bigger, like for ballistic missiles and things of that sort. I think a drone that's flying 30 feet from the ground, that's the size of your drone that you have at your house. Yeah. There's no way NORAD's seeing that. No way.
Probably not. I don't know. I think that we're working with the idea that a lot of the things we're told about these are the myths of American power and capability. I think you're actually onto something in the fact that, like, no, they really can't do a lot. They really don't have the capability that they say they do. These are the myths that keep us safe, because we don't push the boundaries. If we did, and we flew our drones over these places, nothing would happen to us. And that's what they don't want you to know. They don't want you to know that, oh yeah, you get pretty much a free pass if you fly over. Patterson Air Force Base is a major Air Force base.
Oh yeah, I went to preschool at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I will tell you, I looked up quickly. If the internet is right, the weather balloon typically starts out at 2 meters in diameter, but it can go up to 10 meters in diameter. The Chinese weather balloon, it says it was 61 meters, 200 feet tall.
Yeah,
according to it. So seeing something like that is easier for them. So if they're saying, okay, we see something along those lines, but there's a certain threshold that most things it would be triggered nonstop if they set it to the size to see a commercial sized drone, or even some of the bigger ones that you might see at NAB that actually now you start seeing some people are creating those drones that you could actually ride on, like the super big ones that they're literally like 6 feet wide or whatever.
That's like exactly what they were saying. They're seeing, like, people describe these things as like 6 feet, like the size of SUVs. And
I mean, some of the ones that they're building now are so small, but they're big enough to actually, they just strap like a chair onto them, which is all you really need to do depending on what your mission is. Like if your mission is just to drop a payload, like a dirty bomb or something, you don't need much. You just need something that's able to lift off the ground and be able to carry something. Who knows the actual weight payload on some of these things that are catastrophic. If it's like a small dirty nuke, I mean, most people reference that could be the size of like a briefcase. You're talking about a payload less than 50 pounds or whatever.
And I'm glad that you brought that up too, because now we have to think about, like, so if it wasn't if someone's lying, because honestly, I think that when you come back to what Trump said, it really doesn't deviate from what John Kirby was saying, the spokesman for the Pentagon during the Biden administration. He's like, nothing's there. It's just hobbyists. It's nothing. He didn't say it was us. He definitely didn't say that part. But he essentially just said there's nothing to worry about. It's much UFO about nothing. And so UFO, by the way, is the way some people in the know pronounce UFO. So UFOs.
I was wondering what that was. I mean, if there's anything I hope that this does, I would like to see, the more that people are talking about UAPs, more talking about drones. I mean, I think that is something that our military bases should look into to make sure that they do have a proper way of dealing with small things that fly underneath the radar, because it is a real threat. I think we've seen that, especially when you look at the war that is taking place over in Ukraine. Half of the damage and most of the stuff that's happening is by small drone vehicles. We're watching it play out overseas, and now it's a matter of like, our bases need to take the steps.
Right. And
they just haven't got here internal, because it would have to be an internal threat, or somebody would have to come over and do something. But it is a real threat that we need to address.
Right.
We're already years behind probably on what it should be. I would like to think that every base has something, but when you think about how the way that funding is, bases aren't endless piles of money as much as people would think that they have to spend on it. And I've been on a lot of bases, and I've seen nothing that would constitute something that's set up to prepare themselves to defend against small drones or a fleet of small drones.
Right.
If they came trying to stop something, they're looking for something bigger. Even if you flew a jet up to look for something, if it doesn't register where it's at, that jet's useless. And more than likely, the drone's already delivered its payload.
Mm-hmm.
Flying in.
I mean, honestly, you essentially have circles us all the way back to essentially aside from the spooky part of the UAP folks, the Grushes and the Elizondos, even the Ryan Graves, their big thrust is it could be UFOs, it could be weird, but primarily let's focus on these, terrestrial options, China, Russia, or just, domestic terrorists, the ability for these drones now to cause damage to bases, to jets, to whatever is becoming much more real by the day. And so that's why we need to be very, very vigilant and study these things, because in a lot of ways, by not addressing them and just discounting them and saying, we don't have to worry about it. There is a threat there. You're allowing that threat to just simply persist and grow and until the worst happens. Now, I will say none of what happened during this drone flap in Jersey gives me any sense that the government has any kind of plan ready to go, because their initial plan was to lie to the American public, just bold-faced lie. And that of course again gets to the question, what could it have been if it's not this NASA business partnership type thing? Was it what people are saying? Was it a dirty nuke? Was there some kind of, were they trying to track down nuclear material that people were saying, they're trying, someone's trying to like stole some nuclear stuff from a hospital and they might be building a bomb. And so now they're just, canvassing. Could that have been the actual reason? Was it? I mean, I doubt it was the Iranian mothership, but was it a preliminary probing attack from one of our enemies?
Didn't that just happen in Ukraine? Like Russia attacked Chernobyl or one of the nuclear plants with a drone. Wasn't it a drone, or was it? I don't think it was a missile. I thought it was a drone attack. It didn't cause any like really serious damage to where there was a leak. But I thought that one of the recent attacks was a drone one. I mean, it's literally playing out elsewhere in the world, And if out of all the stuff that, we've seen over, especially in Israel, like the Iron Dome.
Yeah.
Iron Dome, which I know Trump says he wants to start installing those because we don't have the capability. In Israel, if something goes up in the air and it enters in their space, they're like, well, I hope it wasn't friendly because we're shooting it down, like, sorry, folks. Will it get to that extreme? I mean, in times of when we need to be able to turn it on, maybe that's true, but we need to have something. And I think they just don't want to actively state how weak our system is internal should somebody get in. The outsides, for the most part, are fine, but I think they still want to put better things on the outside to, get some things. But I mean, I think if anything, that is one thing I have approved of, that the Donald has said that we need to start stepping up how we can defend our skies, because stuff's happening and we have no answer for it. So for them to just claim and say, this is us, I think all it's doing is just buying time. They're buying time while they can until they either get something in place, while there's still mystery, while there's still whatever.
Or they're covering it up. Or they're also proving that their little task force about disclosure or declassification is just more theater. Hello, Elliot. Hello.
I don't know if you can
Elliot
hear me. You've been driving me crazy.
I could hear some screaming cat noises. Yeah.
Yes, I'm like, dude, there. Now you saw the show. Now go away.
Yeah.
He made a spot. You made your cameo. Now be gone.
Right. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if it could just be part of the cover up. It could be, I don't know what, just like another one of those things to pacify the public so that we stop asking questions. I think it bodes ill for this declassification effort that Paula Luna seems to be heading up. But only again, we're in early days, and so only time will tell. So,
like if that's the level of fact finding that we're going to get out of things is, it was the FFA.
It was the official
FAA.
story. Straight. We looked into it, and guess what? Across the board, official story.
And that's it. I mean, we have nothing else to say within that. Just it was us. We knew about it.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
so forget it. But it's like, oh no.
Right. So yeah. All right. If you're in the market for paranormal related financial instruments, you're in luck because now there's an ETF specifically geared to take advantage of UFO inspired technology. If you're wondering how that works and how you can get in on a piece of the action, stay tuned and we'll tell you all about it right after the break.
We're taking you straight to the heart of the Nevada desert.
Pahrump, Nevada, to be exact.
I'm your host, Melanie, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Nathan. Say hi, Nate.
Well, good morning, Nevada. It's going to be a beautiful day, just like all the rest.
Yeah, for sure.
Nevada Morning, Pahrump's longest-running radio show, welcoming you each day with local news, weather, and the occasional story about a hairy creature spotted carrying a dog through someone's backyard.
Pahrump has this weirdness magnet. It's almost as if the town itself is a beacon for the strange and unusual. And Nevada Morning is there to document everything.
Yeah, precisely. We pay attention honestly, while everyone else is just asleep at the wheel.
Whoa, hot take, buddy. Maybe someone should be switching to decaf.
It's about paying attention, being curious, recognizing that the most fascinating stories, they aren't always the ones on the front page of the news. Sometimes, the most compelling narratives are unfolding in our own backyards. Or deserts, as the case may be.
That's Nevada Morning.
Hosted by me, Nathan Brandt, and my lovely co-host.
That would be me, Melanie Croft. Join us
every single morning
on Morning Nevada. Only on KTLU.
In a move that's sure to excite both investors and UFO enthusiasts, Tuttle Capital Management has filed for a new exchange-traded fund, an ETF, if you will, focused on companies potentially involved with advanced, possibly extraterrestrial technologies. Dubbed the Tuttle Capital UFO Disclosure AI-powered ETF, or UFOD. This fund aims to allocate at least 80% of its assets to aerospace and defense firms rumored to be working on classified projects that might involve reverse engineered alien tech. That sounds awesome.
Yes.
Matthew Tuttle, the CEO of Tuttle Capital, has expressed a keen interest in the potential of such technologies. He believes that if the government were to disclose possession of advanced alien technology, it could revolutionize various industries. However, he acknowledges the speculative nature of this venture, noting that without sufficient government disclosures, the ETF's launch might not proceed. This initiative is part of a broader trend where investment firms are exploring thematic ETFs that tap into emerging and speculative sectors. This is definitely a speculative sector.
Yes.
While the existence of alien technology remains unconfirmed, the very possibility has intrigued both the financial world and the general public. For those looking to invest in the final frontier, the Procure Space ETF, ticker symbol UFO, if you can imagine that, is already available, focusing on companies engaged in space-related industries. As of now, the fund is trading at $24.12. That's a steal right there.
Mm-hmm.
As always, potential investors should conduct thorough research and consider the very, very, very speculative nature of such investments before diving in.
So with all that, how interested are you? Or how quick are you going to jump in?
Dude, if it's at a price like that, almost just for shits and giggles, I'd be like, all right, let me just hop in here and throw like $100 just because it's ridiculous. I have stock in a women's professional wrestling that is worth absolutely nothing. That's like 0.000. Just because. So I am probably the perfect person to buy stock that's based upon re-engineering vehicles that may or may not come from outer space.
So perfect.
Because I am like their number one sucker right here. I'm like, I buy stock in a company with fake wrestling and fake fighting. I'm like, Send me the ETF. Send me the portfolio. Let's go. Let's do this. I mean,
I got $10,000. I'll take it.
But it's interesting, knowing for them to say like, well, we really, to drive this ETF, they have to have disclosures from the government. At some point, like, what does that mean? And how can they not just sort of like, bro, it's been a while since we've heard something. Can you just issue a statement so we can get a stock spike or something?
Well, and that's the thing too. Like everything could go downhill if Luna's, it sounds like the Tuttle UFO disclosure one requires disclosure for it to actually like to work. It sounds like he hasn't even like hit go on it. He's waiting for them to say, oh yeah, aliens exist. So that one, I don't know is gonna, I don't think that's going to happen because as we discussed before, I believe that the mystery is necessary for this and all parts involved agree that, there is no disclosure. We can't have disclosure. And the most we can get from the Luna task force is official story. We don't know what it is, or it's drones or whatever. And Matthew Tuttle's gonna be like, well, sucks, But
sucks to be us.
The more whistleblowers that come out, who knows? It could just be there's a threshold of people that are like, just do it. I believe in the crash retrieval teams, and I'm sure if there's enough capital out there to buy it up, they're like, all right, hit go and watch this thing soar. I mean,
and that's it. It literally could just get driven up by people just wanting to buy it. Because the whole nature of it, it's like if you can't, people want to buy in on the joke almost, because if we're never going to get the truth and we're never really going to get word on real sort of stuff, people, but they just want to buy into something that's fun and something different, So I could definitely see it shoot up a little bit.
It sounds like
until you have to prove something.
Yeah, it sounds like the perfect meme ETF. It's the GameStop for the
meme
more
ETF.
Enlightened investor. The actual true thinkers out there. This is the one. I mean, Bitcoin exists, and I'm more of a butt coin kind of guy. Like I'm a butter, and. So if that can go up to 100,000, I feel like the UFO one should have way stronger legs than that. That's just my opinion. It's not financial advice.
Yes, do not take our financial. When I say I would definitely invest in it, that means you should not invest in it. If you heard me talk about how I bought in a company I know is never going to make money just because it has women in lingerie fighting. This is another one where it's like, you need to see receipts. You need to see stuff coming. And if they can't even really say whether, these vehicles exist that they want to engineer, and at some point you got to show profit. You can't just take money. You have to show profit, or you're just buying into the meme. You're just buying into a meme stock.
Now, it does seem like the UFO procures ETF. I mean, it's essentially just an aerospace ETF. So, I that's actually, honestly, if I had to say, as we have Bezos, did he actually launch his rocket? I can't remember if he did or not. Yeah, I think he did. But either way, now that we have these private spacecraft industries, going through the moon, almost quite literally, investing in aerospace, getting a little bit of that Starlink action, a little of SpaceX action, Blue Horizon, and anything out there on even. Do you know who Bob Bigelow is? Robert Bigelow. He's big on sounds
familiar.
Yeah, he's here in Vegas. He's huge in the paranormals field. He's the one that actually bought Skinwalker Ranch and put it on the list.
Okay.
He owns an aerospace company as well, fittingly. So, I don't know how much business they're doing right now or if it got shuttered, but still, either way, I feel like there's a market out there. And if you're interested in that and you want to support that, because it gets us closer into the stars, or just, creating death satellites to just rain, terror on our enemies, it's still, that's a growth market, it's a growth market. So that's all I'm going to say. And with that, that's going to be the show. Odd Normal's What in the Weird is a production of KTLU in association with Rotten Baby Media. Due to a slew of poorly thought out financial investments, the show is produced by me and Cold Coffee. The show is edited by yours truly on behalf of all the fired federal agents still holding on to the trove of government secrets and looking for someone to share them with. Full episodes are posted to YouTube and Spotify. If you'd like to support the show, take a clear picture of a 125-foot winged space alien and send it to @oddnormal. While you're there, do the whole like and subscribe thing as well. We have the socials @oddnormal on Blue Sky, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Most of all, thank you for listening. And now go live in wonder.
Odd Normal.